Then I think we're set. I would like to call this meeting to order. It's the regular meeting of the Palm Springs Public Arts Commission for Wednesday, January 20th, 2021. And I'd like to ask Jay to call the roll, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mara Gladstone, please. Commissioner Gladstone.
Present.
Commissioner Murray.
Present.
Commissioner Yanni.
Present.
Commissioner Pritchard.
Present.
Commissioner Favreau. Vice Chair Merrigan.
Here.
And Chair Sheffer.
Here.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask, since some of these names are unfamiliar, if our guests would just go around and identify themselves so we can put it in the minutes. Can start with Alicia. I see you.
Hi, Alicia Thomas. Thank you for inviting me.
Cesar.
Hi, I'm Cesar Garcia Alvarez, the co-curator of Desert X.
Okay. And A+3 is
Val.
Hal. Okay. Barrett.
Hi, everyone. Barrett Newkirk, just a Palm Springs resident interested in following the proceedings of the commission.
Great. Welcome. Jasa.
Hi there, I'm Jason Mckenzie. I'm the curatorial coordinator for Desert X.
Great. And Dieter.
Dieter Crawford, Vice President of Desert Highland Gateway Estates Community Action Association, also a Parks and Recs Commissioner.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. May I have a motion, please, to accept the agenda?
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
Need a second? Shonda? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. Okay. Now, this is the time that has been set aside for members of the public to address the Public Arts Commission on items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission, and agenda items if the member of the public cannot be present later in the meeting at the time each item is heard by the commission. Additionally, members of the public may address the commission on each item listed on the posted agenda at the time each item is heard. Although the Public Arts Commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. And 5 minutes is assigned for each speaker. Is there anyone who would like to speak as public comment? I would like to note that we received just a little while ago through the city clerk a letter from Gary Johns as from the historic, he's a board member of the Preservation Foundation, commenting on the benches in front of City Hall that were placed in front of an historic property, and urging us in the future to talk to the Historic Site Preservation Board when we are doing art that is next to or part of a historic property. And I will answer this, but I think that's probably a good suggestion. I think anytime we can work with the other commissions and boards in the city, it will make for much stronger programs. And we have been working with the Parks Commission, and that's already shown to be a much better way than sort of going in these silos independently. So that leads me into actually the report from the chair that I have is just to tell you that the benches in front of the airport have been completed. Madalena has started putting them on social media, and I have reported on the placement and the artist to the Airport Commission, which is meeting simultaneously with us, and also to Dr. Reddy, who allowed us to do this as a pilot project. And if we get some reactions back from the Airport Commission, we'll certainly discuss them in our next meeting. And other than that, I note that at the last city council meeting, the report on the Public Art Fund, the activity in the Public Art Fund for the last 5 years in terms of the fees that were paid into it was released and is in the materials for that meeting, if anyone would like to see it. It's simply interesting to see that the amount coming into the Public Art Fund has been fairly steady over the last 5 years, but is showing a slight increase every year, and that our balance remains more or less constant because we've been spending approximately what comes in each year, even though we do it, we don't know what the amount is until we've already halfway into the year. But if anyone has any questions about that, we can send it out or take a closer look at it. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is item C1, the review of the new Desert X projects which have been proposed for Palm Springs since we last reviewed the Myers piece for the Tockwitz median. And I'd like to ask Mara Gladstone to just bring us up. You should have received the description of these projects with the agenda. So I hope everyone has that. Do you need
Sure.
Jay to put them up on the screen?
Yeah, that would be great. I'm happy to present just an overview of how this proposal came to be. And I know my colleagues, Cesar and Jace, are also available to answer questions. So full disclosure, I do work for Desert X as the director of public programs there. But I've been sort of an intermediary between members of the community and the Arts Commission and Desert X because of this project. So yeah, I'd love to see the, Jay, if you're able to share the screen, that would be terrific. So this is a project that had previously been planned for the city of Coachella. It's by a Ghana-based artist named Serge Atukwe-Klati. And this proposal was in the news briefly, our local news, because the city of Coachella declined to approve the project, which was really disappointing because the project is really cool. So Serge uses recycled materials, specifically yellow plastic jerry cans known as Cool 4 gallons, which are colonial remnants. Basically, they were used to transport cooking oil, and are rather ubiquitous in Ghana and are used to transport water from wells to communities.
Jay, can you go to the next?
You can see in the
next
background behind him actually is an example of the weaving that Serge does with these recycled jugs. So yes, the next slide will show you the description. So the project that is proposed is called the Wishing Well. It's a sculptural installation of large scale cubes woven together from these Kufor gallons. And well, basically I got a call from an email from a member of the community, Dear Crawford, who I believe also serves on the Parks Commission and is the chair or the board member of the James O. Jesse Desert Highlands Unity Center, the community group there, who expressed interest in welcoming this project to the James O. Jesse Center site. So the curators and I paid a visit there, and we thought it was really beautiful, and we love this idea that that location serves the largest African American community in the Coachella Valley. So to have the only artist from Africa in this show, in Desert X, connecting to this community is very special. In addition, the location is in very close proximity to the water, the water pathways, the wash that runs through the valley. So that's also a very compelling and interesting linkage from local to a global context and thinking about water. If you can go to the next slide as well, I believe there's a mock-up or at least an example of the site. So if you're familiar with this site, there's a really beautiful and I think underutilized spot behind the James O. Jessie Center, sort of facing the desert on the left, and then sort of facing out towards the mountains in the northwest. It's a really beautiful, fairly level spot that we felt like had an interesting proximity to the natural landscape. Would be a safe space for, and a large enough space for community members and visitors to be able to visit safely. And we felt like, yeah, it just felt like a really nice spot. So I made a presentation to the Desert Highlands community last week and seemed to have some support for the project there. And also mentioned that Desert X is keen to develop public programs with the artists and around the artwork as well, serving this community. I'd like to sort of open the floor to Cesar if he has some additional comments. And Jay, if you can move to the next slide as well, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I can. This is an example of one of the structures. They'll look different, a little different than this, the textures, but the just so that you understand sort of a sense of what the objects will look like. And there will be two of these cubes sitting on sort of a floor woven piece made from the same material. And Serge has done many of these projects in collaboration with multiple NGOs. He's done a lot of public and private commissions that use this material and its relation, and in particular, its relationship to issues of environmental justice around and issues of environmental justice around access to water. So after the Guinean drought, this object sort of became synonymous with a lot of rural communities' access to water. So a lot of people till today have to use these gallons to transport potable water to their homes from well sites. And so this color has become almost embedded within various sort of small communities and rural villages in Labadi, which is where the artist lives and works. And when he came to the Coachella Valley to do a site visit, he was sort of interested around the kind of issues around water management and access as well, and was not as aware of the sort of issues that exist in the Coachella Valley. And because he's done work relating to this subject matter, he wanted his project to be able to sort of create some synergies between multiple communities that he has worked in, including his own. And that's how we arrived at this proposal.
Mara, do you want to?
Can I ask the question that I always ask? Is there any chance that they could leave the piece there for longer than the Desert X exhibition, or would it have to be removed immediately after?
I'll leave that to Cesar and Jason. I'm not sure the agreements with the artists.
Yeah, I think I think it'd be a conversation with the local community and also with the center to see what sort of what the upkeep situation would look like for the work. But when we were looking at other sites, this throughout the valley, this question came up, and the artist was very open to having the work stay up longer. Locally, it would just be a matter of us looking at what the sort of maintenance situation would look like, and then what time period would be of interest to the city to keep the work longer. But the artist is open to the conversation for sure.
I'd also like to mention that this project will also be shared and presented with the Parks Commission at their meeting next Monday.
Any other questions about this one? There is another piece to present. So
There is another piece, and Mar, I can present on Felipe's work. Felipe's the other project is a sculptural wall work. It's a work made out of ceramic tiles that is meant to be a permanent piece for a location, and it's by an artist named Felipe Baeza, who's a Mexican-American artist based in New York, perhaps one of the kind of most really promising emerging Latinx artists in the country working right now. And Felipe spent some time here over the last summer thinking about what he wanted to propose for Desert X, and came up with this work that if we can move to the next slide, so that we can see it. We can move on to the next one. Another one, if there's an image of that is the image of the proposed artwork. It encompasses, the artist creates and mostly works doing sort of these very textured panel works that incorporate wood carving. They're usually done on wood panel sizes and incorporate a multiple sort of series of techniques associated with printmaking. He's trained as a printmaker. Felipe is a queer artist who is also undocumented. And so a lot of his interest and research he's a dreamer, he's a DACA recipient, and a lot of his research when he came here was particularly focused on looking at histories of queer communities of color throughout the Coachella Valley, and also spaces that had sort of nurtured and helped support these communities. So we identified a few locations throughout the Coachella Valley, one being in the city of Indio, that close to a now defunct nightclub that was one of the few Latinx queer nightclubs that operated in the Coachella Valley, that's no longer in operation. And unfortunately, for full transparency, our conversation with the city of Indio was not very productive, and we were discouraged by their lack of interest in another wall work or in a work that wasn't necessarily sculptural in nature. The wall is meant to pay tribute to both queer communities of color that are often left out of both art history and local community stories. And so what you're looking at are two arms from which emerge this sort of rhizome of lotus flowers that is meant to gesture to a subject or a person that is coming into being. And the idea is that it would be sited in a location where local stakeholders and particularly sort of members of queer community could sort of have access to this work in the long term. We have had conversations, and Felipe sort of had some conversations when he was here with the Desert AIDS Project about incorporating this mural on their campus as a permanent work of art that would stay. I had a nice conversation with the director this morning because now that we're sort of looking for a location in the city of Palm Springs, and we were sort of informed that there are walls and spaces on the campus that could accommodate this piece if we are interested to having this work be in the city of Palm Springs and on the campus, particularly of the Desert AIDS Project, whose history really is kind of groundbreaking in terms of its relationship to the kind of work they do with the community. So if we can go one slide back, please. This is sort of the wall identified on the campus of the Desert AIDS Project. There's some logistical issues that we are gonna need to have conversations about, sort of the maintenance of the tree, reincorporating the design to see how the mural can sort of be installed on the wall. But the wall is pretty much to the scale of the produced artwork, and we hope that this can sort of be the home for this permanent piece.
Okay, any questions?
Just
So,
to give, if I may, some
Yeah.
information on where this wall is on the DAP campus.
I believe it's the south wall. And if you're looking at it, to the left would be the entrance to the dock.
Okay, so to the right is actually Sunrise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Um, I actually spoke to David Brinkman today also, because this is a mural. I'm afraid we're going to have to go through some version of the process for approving murals. So I asked him if Desert AIDS Project would please put it on the agenda of their board meeting, which is next Tuesday, and confirm that they would like to request this piece on their building. And then we will work with them to set up a public hearing on it and be able to make a recommendation to the city council. So that we can do after their board meeting, we could set up a public hearing about 10 days later so that notice can be sent out. And then the Arts Commission can vote to approve this and pass it on to the city council. So now in the case of the piece at James O. Jesse, I think we have reviewed it and we can indicate our approval of the piece, and then it will be up to the James O. Jesse community and the Parks Department to recommend that it go on that site and recommend that to the city council. So this would be two separate things, but I think that we should take a somewhat informal vote because we are not placing either of these works. They're being placed on other properties. But I would like a motion to approve the placement of these two works in Palm Springs pending approvals from, I guess it's the planning department and the city council.
Jay, at this point, should I be removed from the meeting?
I think you can just abstain, don't you think, Cindy, since
Okay,
she's.
let me know.
I want to put her in waiting room just to be safe.
Okay.
Yeah, I would put her in the
Be
waiting room.
safe.
Off you
Stick me in
go.
the waiting room.
Be safe, I'm sorry.
It's actually a lot easier on Zoom, isn't it? Then you actually don't have to leave the room. Is there someone who would like to make this
If I
motion?
may, I'd like to ask one question about
Sure.
the Felipe's piece on DAP's wall. If we're going to go, if DAP has to go through the mural ordinance process, should or can we, as the Arts Commission, determine that we would pay the fees related to that process?
Yes, I think that we could include that in this motion because we've done that.
Because I think that would be a good
Before.
way for us to have a little part of this.
Exactly.
Can't really have a vote if it's not on the agenda. I think we could kind of say our opinion, but
I think it's you're right. It's not really a vote. It's a sense of the meeting that we would like to further these projects by setting up the public hearing and following the mural process, because we're actually supposed to vote after the public hearing. So I think if everyone is comfortable with that, a sense of the meeting is that we would move forward to help these two projects along with the process.
can we ask Dieter, since he's at the meeting, like what is their community sense of the first project?
Dieter? There you are.
Hi. Yeah. So as Mara said, this was a project that we saw in the news that was being denied from the city of Coachella because they didn't think it was a good fit. So we brought it to the community last Tuesday to the neighborhood group meeting, and everyone seemed to be in support of it. No one seemed to oppose it, but we will bring it back to our next meeting when we have further information, just to get a vote on it. But we thought the exhibit would be good because our neighborhood is the largest predominantly Black community, and then also the proximity to Chino Canyon. And we felt that that would be a good chance to highlight the water issues that surrounding the tribe as well.
Okay,
So,
thank you. So I think that what we're saying, first of all, thank you very much for bringing these to the Arts Commission. And I think we're very happy to support your efforts in this. And the placement at James O. Jesse will be a request by the community to place the art there, and the mural, the ceramic mural at Desert AIDS Project will come as a request from Desert AIDS Project. But as Russell suggested, we will, as we have done with many projects so far, offer to cover the fees associated with having a public hearing. Is there anything else, any other comments that anyone would like to make about?
Well, just further to that, as Alfonso brought up, I think we should work with JOJ Center and Desert X to hopefully keep this installation at JOJ longer than the Desert X time period. So I think it's going to be an important piece to draw people who would not normally go to the JOJ Center to actually come there, experience what it is, and see this beautiful art piece.
Excellent.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I will definitely communicate to the artist right away that there's interest in keeping the work up longer, so that we can get that conversation going from the artist studio as well and make sure that we can make that happen.
Okay, and also I
just
see.
have one last question.
Yeah.
So just to go back to our last meeting, so could you just quickly, Caesar, refresh us on which pieces are now planned for Palm Springs? And you
Yeah.
can just, you don't have to give detailed descriptions, but
Well, there is the Vivian Suter installation in the building right across from the Architecture and Design Museum. That's one. There is the artwork by Nicholas Galanin that is right by the Palm Springs Visitor Center. There is the work on the median by Christopher Myers. And if these two works, we can make this happen, it would be the Sergio Tuque Clotti and the Felipe Baeza.
so 5 altogether.
5
Also,
altogether.
sorry, also the Aviera Simmons installation on the billboards along
Correct.
Gina.
But
And those will be on Gene Autry again?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yes.
same spot as the 2 previous editions.
And if I understand correctly, the building permits are set for the Indian land one, and
Yes.
the Myers piece on the Tuckwitz median will go to the city council. I think, I see Cindy's off for a minute, but I think on January 28th, with a full report from the planning and engineering department. And so if these 2 that we've seen today can go through the approval process, we should have 5, 6 pieces in Palm Springs. And at this point, if we can let Mara back in the room, I think that one of the things we can look forward to is some public programs around all of these pieces that it I think is going to be one of the larger concentrations of pieces in one city in the Coachella Valley.
Correct. And we're incredibly grateful for the support for these projects. This year's Desert X is a little different. It asks, the projects grapple with localized histories and ask challenging questions. And we're really grateful to the Public Arts Commission for the support of projects like this.
One comment I would make as someone that works in ceramics is that I'm really excited to see a mural made using ceramics. So I'm very excited about that.
That's very good.
Thank
Any
you.
other comments on this reset? Okay. So the next item on the agenda is, it reads, approve a contract with Alicia Thomas to create a master inventory document for public art, including artist locations, condition, and valuation. This is something that we discussed in our study session and did not have the details of it. Subsequently, Alicia, who's on the call, wrote a much clearer description of what it is we're looking for. And what I would like the commission to do today is consider if this is in fact the project that we would like to undertake. And then we will, Commissioner Yanni and I have been acting as the committee on this. We will turn it into an actual contract that can be voted on. But I think that she has given us a much better, a clearer description of what it was we were looking for when we wanted to get some handle on the 82 pieces of art that the commission, that the city owns. What she is proposing is to develop a collections management system for the art collection of the city of Palm Springs. The goal of the project is to create a system that allows public access to information about the artworks and artists. At the same time, this system would confirm the city's holdings and help manage the collection. And quite frankly, we have a very out-of-date inventory, which we sent out to all of you. And the Art Collective has just sent in a list of approximately 16 works that they can't even find that are on the list. So there's a lot of work to be done to sort of bring this all up to date. It would contain information about each artwork, its location, condition, maintenance need, and insurance valuation. Again, the insurance valuations are way out of date. The system would have searchable fields, report functionality, and the flexibility to link to the Public Arts Commission's website, which would ultimately provide public access to basic information about the collection. Alicia goes on, she has laid out a plan and can certainly answer any questions about it. But we simply need right now the commission's go ahead to turn this idea into a contract. When we hired the Art Collective to clean and assess all of the works in the commission, we didn't really have a firm idea of what you do with this information after you have it. And the Art Collective has, they attached to our agenda is 101 pages of their condition reports so far. But the difference between that and a collection management system is what you do, what you can do with this information afterwards. And that is that it's accessible in terms of determining priorities for work that has to be done. It's important in terms of the valuation for insurance purposes, and it's a way to make it available to the public so that if they see a work in our collection, there's a way to link them to information about the artist, about the piece, about the subject matter, etc. So I would like, again, this is not a vote on a contract because we don't have it written yet, but I would like the commission's sense of the meeting that we go forward and develop a contract with Alicia to develop a collection management system for the city.
If I may, yeah, I'm completely in favor of this. I think it's very important for us to have a searchable and accessible database for all of our public art. When I read through Alicia's proposal, it just seemed that I was concerned that there was a little bit too much overlap on the condition and maintenance part that seems to be already covered by the art collective. So I just wanted to, as it gets fine-tuned, the focus being on making sure that we make it an accessible database for our website and for the public. So, I mean, certainly there is going to be some overlap, but it's important for us to get the most out of our money for this to create the database as opposed to overlap on the whole maintenance and condition part of it.
And I think what actually, if you just go back a little bit, Jay, the screen before, what this plan will do is incorporate all the work that's been done by the art collective. It doesn't have to be duplicated, but it needs to be accessible in a way along with all the rest of the information.
Right.
So I think it dovetails nicely. And as it happens, Alicia and Arlene Amick from the Art Collective have worked together before at the museum. The difference is that Alicia's role is was really in charge of the collection management and is also in addition to handle appraisals and recommendations for what we should be doing, having kept track of the museum's collection for a number of years. But it's a different skill set.
Yeah.
So
So,
can I just, to Dave's
yeah.
point, or to Russell's point, yeah, that was an understanding that there is, I feel like there is a lot of this information already from those, as you know, how thorough the art collective documentation has been, right? So there's great, so there is a lot. I think my sense of it is that it's kind of more putting it into a format that's a little bit more workable for us. Like I feel, like some of the stuff we have, it's like so much information, and this is really helping us manage it. And then the other is that phase 3 part, of course, Art Collective is, they have nothing to do with appraisals or anything. So that's a pretty significant part of, it's sort of like taking what we've been doing and then adding on another step that would be something that Nail to Nail would do as opposed to Art Collective, because that's not in their area at all. So.
And, I feel as though those of us who've been on the commission for 5 or 6 years, from the very beginning, it was very hard to get a sense of what actually was in the collection and where some of it is. Some things have been moved around. Some things are apparently stashed behind City Hall, and we'll have to go take a look again. But it's really our responsibility to the city to be able to account for millions of dollars worth of art. And as we all know, a number of pieces that are in bad condition, partly because of the climate, partly because of, they've been hit by cars. I mean, there's all kinds of parts to this. And I'd like to think if there's one thing that this commission this year accomplishes, it's to really get a handle on what the city's arts commission collection is, and then future commissions can decide what to do with it.
And will this also have the QR codes? Will it also be available with the databases as well?
It can, yes. I mean, we need to determine what sort of either QR codes, or there's something called geotagging, where each piece has like a QR code that can identify it on a map. For example, if you're with your phone and you look at a piece, it will locate it on a map for you and then take you to other information. And I think we don't know exactly which one of those methods we're going to use. But the whole idea is to get the information somehow from the piece of sculpture to the public that's looking at it in a way that's meaningful, especially as you see increasingly some of the subject matter or just the pieces of art are controversial. They encourage discussion about some of these things, including Desert X. Really, I think, wants people to engage with the art and ask questions about it. And so this is a way to facilitate that on an ongoing basis, not just for Desert X.
I have a question and a few comments.
Yeah.
So I think this is a really good idea, because what's been happening is we've been great at gathering all of this information, images, reports on conditions. There is a place where it's kind of stored, where it is stored, but it seems like the collections management system will allow us to really understand that. And what I really like about this idea is that, as I understand it, Alicia has a lot of experience with collections management, but also has a like an appraisal license. I think with her background, she will be able to educate us and advise us and steer us in being able to make decisions about what we should conserve, and and really think about them in terms of costs and value. And I know that's something that we've kind of gotten stuck on in the last year. So I think having someone with this kind of knowledge and expertise to help us, give us all the information so we can make informed decisions about the collection is really, really important. Because I think, we have a lot of information, but it's kind of incomplete, and we just haven't been able to move forward, I know, on a few conservation works that we know we want to conserve or aren't sure if we should. I also think the integration with our website or with our social media is very interesting, and I would love to at some point hear more about what those options are. But I do have two questions for Alicia, which is, one, is there a separate cost for the collections management system itself? Or is she building something that the Public Art Commission, the city, can use in perpetuity? And then the second question is, can this system or the information in it exist without Alicia? So in a digital format, like, can it be exported into like an Excel document that can be used in the future? I just know technologies become outdated. People decide they don't want to do this work anymore. People move on. And so I'm just, if we do invest in this, I would want to make sure that all of this work that's done is available to us if we don't have, the collections management system, or if, there's a bunch of new people on the commission or in the city, or, a new Alicia, I would just love to know that that information can exist outside of this system.
Alicia, you want to just...
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So in answer to your first question, I would not be building something from scratch. I would recommend a product database that's simple to use, but has enough flexibility to do the kinds of things you want. I understand if you want QR codes or perhaps even interviews with artists attached to them or embedded in them, you'd need something that could handle media files of different kinds. So the system that we go with will partly depend on you and what your needs are, what you'd like to see. Second question, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Yes, it will absolutely exist beyond me or beyond this council. Product like FileMaker Pro, for example, it comes to mind, has been around for a very long time. And as I mentioned in the proposal, we'd be looking for something that can run reports, exports to other software packages like Excel, more than likely, or might have its own reporting functionality. Some of the more sophisticated and expensive products do have their own reporting functionality. I don't think that the city needs something like that, But you would be making that decision just based on information that I gather.
And would the system be accessible? Like, is it a web-based system? Would it be something that would be accessible to people besides you? So for example, right now
yeah.
there isn't, you know, a public arts, there's staff, but you know, if there's a designated collections manager for the city's collection at some point, would they be able to, you know, access that or
Oh, yeah,
look
of
up
course.
insurance values? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who's given permission to have the access by you will have the access. And then of course you'll want to limit the kinds of data that you actually put out in the public domain, but it will serve as a storage system, electronic storage system. It will probably be backed by the cloud. I might not suggest a fully cloud-based program. They're getting, you know, more common now, but once you have a cloud-based program and you have no internet, then you can't update or access anything. So we probably want something a little bit more like server-based.
Great.
Thank you.
Cindy, does that give us enough to go and now flesh out the contract that was?
I think so. What we need to do is put it into an official scope, attach it to an agreement, and we'll bring that back.
Right, exactly. And we need to cost this out also, which we,
Right.
But I'm very pleased that what started as just a vague idea, which we were calling a database, really is a much more comprehensive idea and something I think we desperately need, and we owe the city this too. Tom,
I have a question. So I like this idea of, I can't quite imagine how it interfaces with our website. And again, you mentioned, you know, how much data, not, you know, size of files and things like that. But I mean, I actually kind of like the idea of being totally transparent. I mean, not that anyone could access our site and type stuff in about things, but the idea of, you know, that somebody could go to our site and look up a piece and see that it was cleaned 6 months ago, or see that it's going to be cleaned or something. I don't know, but I mean, just like, I'm kind of, you know, let's just put it all out there for the public, you know. I mean, that if that's possible, I guess that's this idea.
Especially
it seems like it might be, right? But I mean, it's just that, I mean, you know, not to have, not like a wiki where people are adding notes to it, but I mean, like certain fields, obviously, just put out there and let people see and learn about the pieces, you know, at whatever level of detail they choose, right?
The most
transparency. Yeah. Sorry, Tracy.
Oh, the most transparency possible, because it is, you know, it's public, you know, it's public information basically.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
And then, yeah.
Just traditionally, I guess what I was referring to were insurance values. That it's, your insurance company might not like it if you advertise what something's current market value is.
Yeah.
No, that I understand, but yeah, more, I was saying more of like condition and sort of history of the, you know, work that was done on it to repair it, that, you know, those kinds of things where there's like a little history of the piece or something that could be accessible.
Right. And then the sort of thing that Shonda's been talking about, which is some background on the artist, the piece, the theme of it. And that's the kind of stuff that could easily be on our website.
The interviews.
Exactly. And there
Artist
are,
statements,
there are tours of public art collections in other cities, some of which, if you put your phone up to the piece, you know, Sonny Bono speaks to you, or the artist speaks to you about the piece. I mean, you can be very interactive. There's a lot of technologies now. So this is going to be the framework for it. And it can be added to, and again, you know, we all know that this commission's going to turn over quite a bit at the end of June. And I hope we can leave the new commission all this technical capability to do all kinds of new programs, new ideas. So great. All right. Well, and if anyone else would like to work on this so-called committee to help flesh this out, just drop me a text and we
So
can always
once
have
this so once we have a proposal with a budget figure, then we'll vote on it. Is that?
yes, and
is
we'll
that
try to
okay?
do it by next month. But we can always have a study session or a work session in between if there are some choices to be made about which way to go with this.
I
Okay.
was gonna suggest that maybe we have, I think for the first few months of the year, if we had maybe a study session every month, I think, having the one last week was really helpful. So maybe if
Do that. We could do that halfway in between, and then
Yeah,
that would
I
give
think
us
that'd be
time to
great.
get something on the next agenda.
Yeah,
If we can, if people don't mind putting in the time, and study sessions are it's easier to cover a lot of material because we're not we have a little more flexibility, so we can go into one topic if that's what we want to do. Very good. Okay, the last thing on the agenda for discussion is the traffic box project, which I'm going to ask Shonda to bring us up to date on. But the major thing we need to do today is look at the map of possible electric boxes so that we can submit them to the city and they can double check that all of these boxes in fact belong to the city, so that we can have permission to paint them. It was pointed out at our last meeting that that some of these boxes are utility boxes and they belong to someone else. It's somewhat difficult for us to sort them all out, but I am going to try to put up this map of
Yeah, so far, the proposal in the beginning was 8 boxes, and since the city asked us to go to them for approval, we decided to approve even more.
That's right.
So
right.
So
keep talking. I'll get this to.
the boxes are located on Palm Canyon, and then we put the additional boxes also on Indian Canyon, coinciding. So the streets are starting from Gateway, San Rafael, Racket Club, Tamaris, Tahava. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Tachiva, thank you. Alejo, Amato, and Taquish. So this is so far the plans, the preliminary plans for the boxes. There also is a database. If you look in the chat, the Google Docs has been set up with all the different submissions that we have in so far. There are a few late straggling submissions that may come in by tomorrow. Because communications with another person was because of COVID, it was so they're getting it tomorrow, past the deadline. So these are the boxes. That's the database so far that we have with all the submissions. And this is what we're proposing, to do these utility boxes. Each intersection has a utility box. When I brought this idea out, I was told that the city owns all the traffic boxes, so I hope we don't come into any obstacles. There are a couple of intersections that 2 different boxes do appear, and we still have to determine the difference between those boxes. Yeah, so this is what we have. I hope you guys like the database so far. If there are any additional streets, I have reached out to 1PS So whatever boxes that are in these neighborhoods, I'll be reaching out to that community. I've also reached out to Desert Highland Gateway Estates Community Action Committee. They've formed a subcommittee, which is our public arts subcommittee. That committee will be looking at the database in the boxes and choosing a database for, not a database, a box for their neighborhood, which is in front of the Mountain Gate sign. And there's also another one of these boxes at the other end of the neighborhood at Indian Canyon. So this is what we have proposed so far. And I hope you all enjoy looking through, and we'll be delighted by the submissions, and hopefully you'll have more artists to send my way, so we can get out the messaging that we want to beautify our city, to unify our city, to inspire our city. So that's the intention behind all of the boxes.
And let me just add for Cindy that Shonda has photographed each one of these boxes, and we're trying to put the map and the boxes together in a way that it's easy to see which is where, though quite frankly the boxes all look alike. So it's just a question of trying to make it easy for Marcus to see which box. And there are a couple of places where there's two boxes next to each other, and we do need some advice on which one belongs to the city and which one doesn't. But if I understand correctly, these do the traffic signals, and that's why there's one on each intersection.
So Marcus did review, I think it was preliminary, the one that we had before. There weren't this many submissions.
Right.
And he did say that it looked like most of them were city traffic boxes, but there was one or two that may belong to another agency, and he did need to confirm that.
So we'll get this all to him so that, unfortunately, the Google Maps are hard to read. So Shonda's been driving around taking photographs. But in general, the process is going to be somewhat similar to what we did with benches, which is we get the set of boxes approved that we want to do. We have these submissions. We have a process where some more of the stakeholders can vote on their preferences. For example, for Main Street, we had some of the business owners. For this one, Shonda's talking to various 1PS groups, depending on what neighborhood it is. We put together sort of the order of preferences, and then a group sits down and decides which artwork ought to go on which box. But we really are trying to have as much involvement from the people who either have these in front of their building or walk by them all the time, so that it's not just an arbitrary choice by a couple of us. And it worked out very well with the benches.
1PS has also agreed, 1PS Communications has also agreed to that we can put the boxes that are narrowed down on their Instagram site, so even more people will be able to join in virtually. And we're trying to make a collaboration just so the city is abreast of it, and also it gets more buzz and more talking about the wonderful things that the Art Commission is doing. The other boxes that Anne was talking about, it looks like they have some kind of gauge on them. They have little squares on them, and they're super cute, and they would make wonderful, adorable little robots around the city.
If we could just figure out what they were.
So I just want you guys to know, especially Cindy, reporting back to the council, that it's only good vibes that the Art Commission is going to be like sending out.
Well,
really happy vibes.
I appreciate that. I want to just let you know that they did ask for specifics. So when we get it narrowed down, when we have a kind of a final map, and you've got recommendations of artists for each of the boxes, and it's gotten sign off from the neighborhoods or whomever, that's what we then need to send to the council for your recommendations on all of those, for them to review and approve, because they've indicated that they want a little bit more control about some of these issues. This is one of them. So we will need to send all of that on to them in a package so they can look at it, review it, and approve it.
Yes.
I had a question for Shonda. So I just was curious. So this Stop in the Name of Love, right? So the overall project, I'm just curious, is there any kind of, do the designs incorporate something so that people understand that it's like part of this? I mean, that it's all part of one project, you know, so it's like Stop in the Name of Love with the stoplights, right? I mean, I guess that's the connection. And then, so I guess I just, one of the ways I was thinking, like how a lot of the benches, they have the Arts Commission hashtag and stuff like that. So I just was curious, like to help people understand that they're part of this bigger project, right? Like, I don't know. So I was just curious if that's in the design aspect somehow, or in the publicity, I guess, or something like that.
The first idea of the concept was Stop in the Name of Love, all the things you love about our city of Palm Springs. So each of them have that essence of love. I was being a little tongue-in-cheek, cliche fun, having it in February because it's also Black History Month as well as the month of love. So I wanted to incorporate those two items in. Some of the artwork shows that, and some of it doesn't. I'm hoping that as this progresses, that we can get more themes out there of all the great buzzwords that we heard in all the speeches today. So we're all on the same page. So when you're driving down Palm Canyon or Indian Canyon, you'll see a box that are like, oh, that's a beautiful box, and has has love on it. And then the next one has, some kind of messaging of unity. And the next one has, so as you go through the city, that it's just that vibey, good feeling. So when you get to downtown, it's just a big orchestra of beautiful artwork everywhere you look. So I was going to use another old word, but I didn't think it was appropriate.
I think what Tom is talking about is, is this a place maybe to have a QR code or the hashtag, so that if someone wanted to see how this fit into the whole scheme, if you're at one box, if you want to see what else there is all the way down Palm Canyon, you might be able to find it on our website or whatever. So that's a good place to maybe try out the idea of a QR code or something, or at least a hashtag. Okay, well, this is going to be a very busy month around here.
If I may, I just wanted to give a shout out to Shonda for creating this project, because if we think back to a couple of years ago when we placed a little Imagine Art sign downtown, now doing all of the benches and the utility boxes, people are seeing there is art everywhere in this town. Thank you, Shonda.
Well, thank you, Russell, for inspiring me with the benches and the keep on keeping on and the whole art commission coming together. I mean, everybody's adding their beautiful splash of paint on this canvas. And when we're done, Palm Springs is going to be beautiful. It's beautiful now, but she's going to look like she's had good work done.
Okay. Al, did you want to say you've appeared?
Oh, congrats, Shonda. I just wanted to say.
Thank you, Tracy. Also, Tracy, your love and guidance to go hopping from neighborhood to neighborhood. So it's a group effort. It's a community love project. So I'm all about it, you all.
And thank you also for the interviews that you've taped, because that, I think, just can lead to so much more interaction with people and the art. And so at some point there will be, a map of the benches and maybe the boxes. But I think we also have to remember that the whole idea of all of these things was to get them done during COVID at a time when we all needed some cheering up and not necessarily serious permanent art, but that none of these things are meant to be forever, because a new commission, a new group of artists may, you may want to go through and do them all over again. And this 80 pieces of permanent art that we have to do something with is a whole other issue. But to be able to keep creating art in a very quick and responsive way. And the other thing is, I'm very proud of the fact that I think to date we've paid 60 artists. Not a lot, but we are making work for artists in the midst of this period of when it's been so difficult for businesses. And I pointed out the other day, I saw an article that pointed out that all the talk about how gig workers are so important to the economy and whether they should be paid as employees or independent contractors or whatever, but artists are the original gig workers. And so we've actually been able to keep some money going into that community.
So
okay.
can we move on to committee
Yes.
reports? So
And
can we bring that up on the link? Or
I
I don't think we need to go through. Is that the really huge
you know what,
thing?
we haven't given, we just got the actual report at about 4 o'clock. So why don't we,
I'll just do a
save
brief
that for the
recap. So just to let everyone know that the Art Collective finally has a purchase order, and they are now finally able to go back to work again. So so they are continuing. They have been working on inputting some of that information from before, but as you know, they had been sort of prevented from doing any further work in terms of maintenance and things. So they have their business license, they have their contract, they have a purchase order, so now they can start billing. So as Anne mentioned earlier, there are a few works that they weren't able to find. I don't think it's too, I think we'll either figure them out, or we'll, they'll just, I think they'll turn up. I'm not that worried about it. And that's one thing that maybe some of the other commissioners, we could sort of do a little scout around and check on some of these. And then, but they will continue, just so everyone knows, now that they have the contract, they will continue working on those pieces that we approved back in the summer, the 31 pieces for continued maintenance, the ones that they had started last year. So and sort of continuing on those, so that they are able to do, and they will start doing now. So that's finally back in action. And then in terms of going forward, it's, now we'll be back on track with kind of looking at the next tranche of pieces to be, that need attention and things like that. So, but the good news is that they're back in action and able to keep moving forward, and are able to, and already have the commitment to already, to continue working on those pieces that we discussed in July. So, so that's it. So
Great.
that's happy news.
yes,
news.
Thank you. And then the other report that was attached to the agenda is the phase 3 benches are underway. We have a contract with the Chamber of Commerce this time to pay the artists. I think, Russell, you can tell me, but I think there's 2 or 3 that have started.
Yeah, actually, there's several that have started, especially on Palm Canyon and Incan. There's several that are actually completed. And part of phase 3, I'm very happy that we were able to add 5 at the convention center, because number one, it's an exquisite site for the artist benches because it faces the mountains. It's the front of the convention center. And I was over there the other day with the new artist to our fold of artists, Paul Andrew Barry, who for him, this is a project, one of the largest projects that he's done in public art. He's just at home working on his own little stuff type of thing. And Rob Hampton, who is the manager of the convention center, and his husband, came along while I was chatting with, it goes by Andy Barry. And he was thrilled with his bench, and Rob is absolutely thrilled that they made the decision to move the benches there. So it's just a wonderful addition to the phase 3 bench program.
Can I just add on? I have the same. I had the same experience. I came across Andy working on his bench
Oh,
the other
great.
day at walking past the convention center, and it's a gorgeous. I mean, it's so beautiful. I mean, it was like it looked gorgeous already, and he wasn't even finished. So,
Yeah.
so it's I don't know. That's to me, that's part of the fun too. Is like actually encountering the artists. You know,
Yeah.
working on them and stuff. So it's just. I was really happy to see it. So it's a really nice one. And so so I was glad you were able to get those in.
Yeah, that's
Right.
one of the pleasures about doing this project. And we have to give a huge shout out to Tyson because he does so much work in this project that he's burns every dime of his contract. But I touch base with him on what artist is working where, and I make a point to go down and meet them and talk to them. And it's a brilliant process. So it's really,
and we have great photos of the process of them working and the final product. I should just mention that Russell suggested that we do 2 benches on Taquits near Palm Canyon, right? That turn out to belong. Every now and then we either we're about to paint a bench and the city moves it, or we find out it doesn't belong to the city. And 2 of them belong to Sunline. And I had a nice conversation with the people from Sunline, and they're very pleased and are just going to write up some sort of a memorandum of understanding about who's going to maintain these benches. And I explained that we've had a number of cases already where there's been some damage to a bench, either graffiti or just the skate guards didn't work well enough or whatever. And that we've been either getting the original artist or Tyson to go out and fix them. And that we would be happy to do that for these 2 benches. But if we didn't do them, they would be the only 2 benches on the block that weren't painted. So, but they were really excited to be included in this. So it's nice because 2 years ago we tried to do something with Desert X and Sunline to keep those bus shelters in the city, and it was just too, it's too big a bureaucracy to sort of move quickly on something like that. Anyway, last thing is, are there any other requests or comments from commissioners?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have one. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah. The question is for Alicia, if I pronounced her name correctly. Will her work include the benches and the boxes? Will that be part of the project, incorporating that?
That actually that's actually up to you.
Okay.
I need a little more information about what the city considers permanent versus temporary,
right,
as well as what you own title to that actually is in the collection.
Fortunately, we have kept pretty good track of the benches, maps and the drawings and stuff. So it won't get lost in any case. Whether it's part of the same one, I'm not sure. Okay, do we have any reports from the director or staff? Okay, Cindy. Thank you again, Cindy, for adopting us. I realize that this is not in your job description, but you have to admit we're fun, right? Okay, if there's no other business, I will definitely, I like the idea that we have a few more study sessions between our meetings this spring, because we do have a lot of things that are just about coming together and we should launch them. But if there's nothing else, Tom, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
I would like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting to our next Public Arts Commission regular meeting on Wednesday, February 17th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. via teleconference. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. We are adjourned. Thank you all. And keep sending photos to Madalena because it's really fun to share what's going on. So,
Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone. Thank you.
Good
Bye.
night.
Happy
Good night.
inaugural
Bye.
day, everyone.
Yay.
Yes. Bye. Go watch the show. There's a special on.
Some kind of a special.
There's a celebration.
Something.
Yeah.
Bye.